There you go.
All right. Cool. We'll give this a start. All right. I'm Matt C Bruno. So yeah, we're gonna go over basically how to play the songs you don't know today. That's gonna involve hitting double stops a lot. So kind of a good prerequisite for this is like some basic double stop knowledge or basic major scale or major pentatonic specifically scales. So just to kind of start off, we'll hit up on a couple of like the major double stop positions. There's only 6 of them, which is nice, and I kind of classify these into ups and downs, and it just makes it easier for me. It's not a technical term whatsoever. But we're going to focus really on those last 2 strings, right? So this is like you get to the jam, someone called a song, you have no idea the song, but they're like, hey, it's in A, and it's just, it's what it is. Maybe it's in B flat, or it's in, C sharp, because they're evil. So like they'll call different tunes. This is a way that you can kind of get into that and play those chords really without thinking immediately. And then you can use your, without thinking, you can, if you're doing these things, you can think of other things to do and make a better part of it. So we'll start off, we're going to look at, we'll start off in A, just because that'll be an easy one, right? So for the first double stop we're going to do is just the second fret across the strings for the G and the D string, right? Just those 2, using your first finger, that's it. Right? That's an A double stop, right? It's just A and E, so 1 of the 5. If you're a guitar player, that's also called a power chord, same thing, right? Alright, so the next one that we have from this, in the series of ups, right, would be coming down to the 6th fret and the 7th fret on the same string as the G and the D respectively. So using your first finger on the 6th fret, middle finger on the 7th fret, that's another A, that's going to be your 3rd and a 1, so you're a C sharp and A. Right, and then from there we're going to do one more up, so we're going to slide the first finger down to the 9th fret on the G string, and then that's going to be on the 11th fret on the D, right, and that's going to be a 5 fret, right, so your E and your C sharp. So those are the 3 up positions, right, so just to quick cover those again, 2nd fret across, that's your 1, 5, that's an A, 6th fret, 7th fret, that's the next A, and then 9th fret, 11th fret, that's the next A. For the purpose of this workshop, we're not going to really deal with going way up the neck, so we're just going to primarily deal with probably these 2. But just know that the other one exists up there, and like I said, there's only 3. We're going to go over the what I call the down positions now. The only difference between the 2, and the reason why I separated them is my own sanity. But like I look at this one kind of exemplifies it more, where this finger, the closest finger to you, is further like in the down the neck technically, but I don't know. This makes more sense to me. And then this one's also the same way. The first finger is up the neck a little bit. So these ones are going to focus on now where the first string is on the lower one, right? So you're going to start lower. So we're going to start that one with the ring finger on the 6th fret and the first finger on the 2nd fret. Right? And that's going to be a 3-5 double stop, right? So 6th fret and 2nd fret. From here, you're gonna use like what I call guide fingers. Guide fingers are any finger that you don't really have to move. Like you can use that to slide up. So your ring finger is gonna slide down or up to the 9th fret, and then your middle finger is gonna be on the 7th fret of the D string. So you have the 9th fret of the G, 7th fret on the D string. Okay. That's the next position there. And then from here, we're gonna go into the last position. Which we're basically going to take that, sorry. So it's going to be on the 14th fret on the G and the 11th fret on the D. Again, for the purpose of this workshop, we're not really going to even pay attention to this one, but it exists. It's a good thing to know. And when you start cycling through the double stops and different keys, the cool thing about Mandolin, right, is it's a very symmetrical instrument. So everything we just did, if you transposed it into a different position, those same positions will work. The importance here is knowing the function, right? Not necessarily like the position is the first step, the function of the notes is the second, because then it'll help you out. So when I said, for example, that this first position here, right, you got your root, your 1, and your 5, right? If I decide, okay, hey, I'm gonna call this song in the key of B flat now, I just move that up, right? And now I have the same thing. My root is still here in the first finger, that's my B flat now, and I have my 5th, my F here in the first. And similar, just no matter what you do when you move it up, it'll always be the same, right? So the key with these things is to remember where, like, a defining note is. That could be the root, but sometimes you don't always have the roots, it could be the 3rd, the 5th. But knowing where those are, it is a huge step. If you go to my website, I have a whole bunch of arpeggio studies. Those are the 1, 3, and 5. Those are great exercises to get yourself into, like, really understanding how double stops work and being able to use them to transpose songs. All right,
what's your website?
MattCBruno.com. The hard website. All right, so with that, those are the basic shapes, right? So now we're going to put that into a key. Right? We're going to do this in the key of A, just to stick into that. So we're going to start off here with our 1, right? So it's going to start off with the 2nd fret across the strings, and that's your 1. Your 4 chord, very simple. Now we're going to take your ring finger and just drop it down on the 4th fret of the D string. First finger doesn't move. Like, notice how I'm not moving my first finger at all. It's staying in the same spot. I'm just moving my ring finger up and down. Right? So I have 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. Real simple, right? All right. Now we're going to go to the downs here. We're going to use this as our E, right? So the 2nd finger is on the 4th fret, and then the 1st finger is on the 2nd fret. And that's your E, right? So now you have the simple 1, 4, 5, right? 1 going straight across the 2nd fret, 2nd, 4, 3, 4, back to the 2nd fret, and then 4, 2. Right? Real simple 1, 4, 5. Really come fast. 4, and then 1. So just real quick, one more time. 2nd fret across the way. That's your 1st chord, your tonic, your root. 2nd and 4th. That is your 4 chord. Right? 4th and 2nd. That is your 5 chord. Right? This works in any key that you go into. Right? So again, like, let's just transpose this real quick for argument's sake to B flat. Right? Just shift your first finger up to the 3rd fret. Same positions, right? So 3rd fret straight across. Now it's 3rd and 5th fret, that's your 4. Now it's 5th fret and 3rd fret, that's your 5. And then straight across the 3rd fret again. Right? So that's an easy way to start getting into stuff. Because a lot of times you're going to find, like, someone's going to call a song in A or B flat or B or C. You can just continuously move your finger up and do those same things. In C, that's just a really powerful position to start going, right? So now you get into this jam, someone calls a song, maybe you're familiar with the song, but it's a different key that you're familiar with, or maybe it's a song that you know, but you don't really know how the progression goes that well. Those are easy positions to start off with, right? There's a couple different shapes like of those types of ideas. This is one of them. But let's say now, like, they call the song, instead of calling it an A, let's say it's called G, right? Again, we're going to still use the lowest strings, right? So when you're playing rhythm, especially again, there's a lot of mandolin players. In A, not everybody needs to play these notes, right? These notes get repetitive and they get kind of high, especially if you're a banjo player and fiddle player and all these other things. You'll start getting mixed up and it'll start drowning out the melody and it'll be harder to hear. We've all been in that jam, right? Where, like, all of a sudden you can't hear the instrument for some reason. And you can hear the chord really well, but you can't hear the instrument. So using these double stops and just focusing on that percussive area is a really easy way to stay out of the way of whoever's soloing or singing, while you're also kind of better understanding where you are in the song. So with that in mind, let's say someone calls it a G. We're going to do a closed G double stop. Now the first G double stop would be just these two open strings, but those are really jarring and it's hard to control. So we're going to ignore those. So we're going to use the 4th and the 5th fret instead. All right. So that's going to be a third, and that's going to be your B and your G respectively. So that's your 1 chord. Right? Now your 4 chord is going to be the C. You can get that by switching out to the 5th fret and the 2nd fret using your ring finger and your 1st finger. Okay. And then for your D, we can go to the same D that we used before, the 2nd fret and the 4th fret. That'll be your D. Alright? So in this case, we can do this. G, C, G, D. And if you notice, I have a guide finger right here. So my finger kind of tells my other fingers what to do, right? Right, so I'm not moving when I don't have to. That's another big key to this thing. So that would be your D position. Right? So if someone calls a song D, that also works with E flat, that also works with E, that also works with F, right? But a D position right here. So we have, G position. Right? But this also does work if you're doing stuff in, like, for example, G flat. You can do it with F here, G sharp.
What's the D again?
2 and 4, respectively. The G and the D. So you get your F sharp. Your A, your F sharp, 5 and 2. Okay? So we have 4 and 5, and then 5 and 2 for C. Back to 4 and 5 for G, and then 2 and 4 for D. Okay? 4 and 5 for G, 5 and 2 for C, 4 and 5 for G, 2 and 4 for D. Okay? Right? So those again, easy ways to move around, right? So if someone says, okay, we're going to play the song in A, you can do the same thing here if you want to do a set. That's the basics of those two positions. I don't want to overload too much. Does anybody have any questions real quick before I continue? Alright. So there's one more double stop position. This would be the D position, the one I kept on mixing up before. So this one's where you start off with your 2nd and 4th finger. 2nd and 4th fret, 1st and 3rd finger. That's your root. In this case, you can go down to the G that we just did before, the 4 and the 5. That's your 4 chord. Then your A chord. Back to the 2nd fret across. That's your 5. Right, and then back to D. Right? So again, we have 2 and 4 for your D, your root. 4 and 5 for your 4 chord, your G. And then straight across for your A chord, your 5 chord. Those are the 3 main positions of double stops. If you didn't catch all those, don't worry. Again, all on the website. There's links on like the festival stuff too. So that's the tape. Does anybody have any questions over those 3 positions?
Are you pressing both strings?
Correct. Yeah. These are double stops, so they only involve 2 strings. They just involve the G and the D in this case. You could do all of these positions on the other strings as well. This is where it comes in handy. If you start here with the rhythm stuff, right? You start with the lower positions, you'll be able to play in the jam, right? You'll be able to play with everybody else, and you can, sit in and hear the chords, right? But then, like when you're starting to get ready to solo, the major pentatonic scale is usually your best friend in bluegrass, right? And in that scale, always the 1, 3, and the 5, which are the 3 notes that make up these double stops, always those notes are present. So this is like a good springboard for solo. Everything we do here, you can move up the neck and do it up here and like have this cool solo. So you can do all that stuff, like when you move it up the neck, it becomes a lot easier, and it's easier to understand when you start seeing it in the positions of, okay, there's a double stop right there, I know where this is. And then with the pentatonic scale, usually there's another note just a whole step away. So just one more fret. That's also, by the way, just a side tangent. If you're ever playing a solo and you mess up, first off, smile. Second off, shift in one fret in either direction. Right? Odds are, if you hit the wrong note, if you shift one fret in either direction, you're going to hit the right note. If you don't, again, smile and go one more note whichever direction you went, right? So if you hit the wrong note and it's this, you're like, that didn't work? That'll work. That note will work no matter what. So that's a key to getting out of a bad solo is just play the next note. But play it like you meant to. Okay, so let's put this in context. We'll play 9-pound hammer. Do you want to play just a 9-pound hammer? Sure. All right. We'll do it.
Chop again.
Questions on that part of it? Like just playing along to that basic rhythm? Okay, let's go over the major pentatonic. We're going to do that in 2 positions, okay? We're going to do this in the key of A, and we're going to use that to kind of build on what we did. Again, the double stops are going to be your best friend here, right? Like that stuff that we did before. I'm going to do a solo just based on just these last 2 strings, using just the A double stops, as well as the D and the E double stops, which are the other 2 chords in the song. And then after that, we'll go through the pentatonics and I'll show you a few things there. So let's try it one more time real quick and then do the pentatonics. All right. 2 low notes. I didn't go into any of the higher pitched strings or anything like that. I moved up the neck and down the neck, but like the cool thing is, again, these are all really symmetrical patterns. So once you start learning these patterns, it actually becomes super easy. And the same thing that I was doing up here, right? I just can shift that down here, right? Now I'm into a different position. Now I'm playing the A way up high. But the idea basically is you can use those patterns to kind of shift. You don't have to worry about relearning a lot of stuff, right? All you need to know is where is the 1, 3, and 5 of each of the chords in the song that you're playing, right? How this relates to like going to a jam and where you don't know the songs is just doing a little bit of exercise, a little bit of work prior to going to a jam, right? There's only a handful of keys that most jams will like have maybe 80% of their songs, right? They're in the key of G, A, B flat, B, and D, right? I mean, that's pretty much it, right? There's some songs that are in F and C and things like that, but those are pretty much the main ones. So the good thing is a lot of those songs, a lot of those keys have overlapping chords, so you don't have to learn a ton of stuff. But memorize the 1, 3, and 5, the names of the notes in each of those, and where they sit on this fretboard. It will make you such a stronger player when you're starting to go through this stuff, because those notes will always work in any song that you play. Right? If you're playing in the key of A and you're playing over an A chord and you hit a C sharp note, it will always sound good. Right? If you hit a C note, by contrast, the flat third, it may sound good. You just need to know how to handle it next, right? And same with the other notes, right? So as long as you know what notes sound good, what notes sound dissonant, and like why they sound dissonant, and where they resolve to, that makes it a lot easier to go through. A lot of that stuff can be done through ear training. I'm a huge fan of that. The best way to do it is actually by vocals, in my opinion. Like learning to sing, and like not saying you have to go sing out in public or be really that good, but get a keyboard and start hitting the notes from one to the other. Right, and just really listen to the distance of those notes. And that's going to really help you when you're starting to do this stuff. When you're kind of doing this, you'll be able to hear where the melody goes to the next spot and be able to use a double stop to move yourself up the neck, or just go into different chords. All right, we're going to go over the pentatonic scale. So this is a basic, and we're going to do an A major just because that's what we're doing stuff in. Again, tons of stuff on my website, like in terms of like charts and like actual graphics. So if you're more of a graphical person like I am, just go and download that stuff. It's all free. And then another thing that I should get into as well is writing fretboard roadmaps. Does anybody know what a fretboard roadmap is? Does that make sense? Okay, just real quick, you just write out the fretboard of the mandolin. So I get a college line notebook, just write 4 lines going down as far as you want. I usually go down to the 15th fret myself. And then if you're doing like double stops, for example, and you're trying to figure out the A, D, and the E, the 1, 4, and 5, and A, write the 3 notes that make up the A chord, A, C sharp, and E, and write them everywhere you see those on the fretboard. Just make a dot, put the name of the note next to it. Then do the same thing for D, do the same thing for E. And for me, when I practice a lot of times, especially tunes that I don't know, I'll look at those type of charts and I'll say, okay, I want to like incorporate these notes. I want to be able to make the audience hear that the chord has changed. So what notes in these 3 notes, when I'm changing from the A chord, changing to the D chord, what are the notes that are different? Like the F sharp, for example, in this case, there's no F sharp in the A chord, but there is an F sharp in the D chord. So if I play that F sharp, it's going to sound different, right? And that's not that far away from the E note, which is in the A chord, right? So learning this type of stuff, like learning where the 1, 3, 5 is for each of the 1, 4, and 5 chords. Does everybody follow that, by the way? That's a lot of numbers. Knowing where those are is a huge step up, and then being able to relate them to what you're playing makes it a lot easier. All right, so we're going to go through the pentatonic scale. We're going to start off with a basic root position. I'm not going to get into it, but there's something called the 4-finger close position. There's a really good site, jazzmando.com, I believe. I have a link on my website for it too, but it's a really good idea. But we're not going to get into it, but it's basically involves playing the major pentatonic on each of your 4 fingers as the root. Really great exercise. But we're going to just start and only use our first finger here. So the first finger on the 2nd fret, that's your 1, your root, your tonic, and that's your A. Then we're going to go to the 2nd fret, the 2nd finger, 4th fret, that's your B, your 2. You're going to go to the 6th fret with your 3rd finger, and that's your C sharp, that's your 3rd. This is an important note, as part of the double stops. Next string up, we're going to go to the 2nd fret, that's going to be your E, that's on the D string, 2nd fret. 4th fret on the D string, right, that's going to be your F sharp, that's your 6th. And then we're going to go all the way up with your pinky to the 7th fret on the D, and that's going to be your A note. Right? So once again, we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 7. All right, one more time. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 7. Right? Notice it's kind of symmetrical except for the last note. Right? The last note is a 6 on the first and the 7 on the second. Right? Use that information you're not like to your benefit. Right? Know that most of it is pretty much the same. Right? They add a little bit of extra flavor. The cool thing is, again, we're going to foreshadow a little bit, but this is your root, right? So if this is your root, and we just did this closed position scale, so we just did this closed position scale, all we need to do is find out where this root is somewhere else, and we can play it up the neck. And it's a foreshadowing into the soloing aspect of it. If we take this root and we go down here to the 7th fret of the D string, right? That is our A note for on there, right? Same pattern. Same pattern. Right? That's your A pentatonic scale there as well. So that means anything you do here, you can do here, right? It's just higher up the neck. But this is where it becomes really critical just to really pay attention to your hand position. I should back up just from a small technical point. If you see anybody playing like this, or you play like this, you should stop doing this immediately. Your finger, generally speaking, is going to be parallel to your first finger or your second finger, or somewhere between the two. Right? If your finger's way up here, I'm way exaggerating. If it's way up here, it's really hard to use your finger. Right? And if it's way down here, it's also equally hard to. If it's way over here, it's really hard to like move around and stuff. So you want your finger about parallel to your first, second finger, depending on the chord you're playing, and roughly just a little tiny hair over the fingerboard, but not like that. Right? That's too far. Everyone's got their own preference. Whatever works for you, I'm just telling you what I've seen. So you can go with that. So, but anyway, so same idea. Give me a mid backing track. Same idea, just two different positions. But because I have an anchor, right? My first finger is my anchor. I'm not really thinking too much about anything else other than the position, right? That's the position. I know I can do that here, I can do that here, right? And it works the same again if you're shifting keys. You go from A to B flat. It's the same scale, right? So you're not changing much.
What are you doing with your right hand? Are you actually picking each one, or are you doing a strumming that kind of hits?
When I'm doing the double stops, right, you can hear that, that's like both of them right there. So that's one. So it kind of goes back and forth. The good thing is though, generally speaking with the pentatonic scale, if you play any of the two notes in the pentatonic scale, they may clash, they may have dissonance, but they still probably will sound good. As long as you, like, again, smile and play the next note. But generally speaking, those pentatonic notes are good notes, right? And by the way, there's no such thing as bad notes. They're just notes played at the wrong time. Eventually, all notes sound good. That's always good. So that's the main position for the pentatonic scale up here. And then you have it down here, right? So using those two things together, you can start linking up solos by just shifting, right? Just linking those two things. So the cool thing about the pentatonic, like I said before, is the 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Right? Those are the three notes that are in that. The cool thing about double stops is that's the 1, 3, and 5. Right? So what we can do is you can start off, if you're just starting this practice, right? The first thing you do is study arpeggios, right? The 1, 3, and 5. Right? You get those notes down. You can solo. Not amazingly, but you can solo over any song, right? Next step is you get the pentatonic scale down, and it's two notes, right? The 2 and the 6, right? So you go from 1, 3, and 5 to 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then that's it, right? The next thing is adding the two other notes to make the major scale, right? And so that's just the 4 and the 7. Those notes are also available to you. They're a little different in bluegrass, not as great all the time, but they're available to you. So for right now, I'm going to go through just starting off with just knowing, okay, I don't know the song, but I know the arpeggio notes, and I know how to hit those. We're gonna try and craft like just a simple basic solo just using those notes. And again, as you go through the double stops, you'll start seeing that, oh, I can use those as like kind of cheat sheets in my own head. Like, I know that I'm here. I know that the third is here because I know that this is a double stop. And I know that this is the fifth because I know that this is a double stop. And I know that this is the root over here, so I can come down to here. And because of that, I also know that this is the third and things like that, right? So you can start using that information, the double stops and the arpeggios, to start educating what you're doing with solos. Especially, again, if you don't know the song, there's a significant chance the 1, 3, and 5 are somewhere in the melody of that song. Like, I think More Pretty Girls Than One is 100% pentatonic. Like, there's no non-pentatonic note in that song. And so it makes it a really easy way to like say, okay, if I know the 1, 3, and 5, you can approximate the melody. As long as you have a decent ear where you can say, is the note going up? Is it going down? Is it staying the same? Stuff like that. We'll get into that in a second. Can you play me just the same thing again? Unless you want to play a different progression.
Lots of talking.
Okay. All right, so just 1, 3, and 5 to start off with, right? It's a way to build on top of stuff, right? So again, if you don't know the song and you just play that 1, 3, and 5, then your right hand takes over, right? Like, I don't know if everybody heard like the right hand is like the most important hand. Okay. Your left hand just does the pitch. That's the only thing your left hand does. There's nothing else your left hand does. Your right hand controls your tone, it controls your volume, and it controls your speed, and probably a few other things that I'm missing. But it controls most of your playing, right? So if you can play in like a nice, like a syncopated way, or like a way where you play with the time, those 1, 3, 5 notes can pop really well. Like, you can put them in the right spot where they sound good. Syncopation, for those of you guys don't know, is just when you take something off the beat, basically. So when you're expecting it to land on the downbeat and you push it basically to an offbeat, like an end before and after. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, that type of stuff, right? And the more you do, you've heard that all the time from Bill Monroe all the way up. Like, that syncopation is like an important part of bluegrass playing. It's a skill beyond what we're going through in this particular workshop, but going through and counting, playing to a metronome and stuff like that are also significant ways to make sure you're better at the jam. Always lock in with the bass player. Always lock in with the bass player. I don't care what anybody else is doing, lock in with the bass player. That said, if the lead does something different, try your best to follow the lead. Like, because the lead is what people are listening to. Hopefully the bass player is too. But still, just keep in mind where you are in the jam and things like that. Does anybody have any questions? We've run through a bunch of stuff, and I feel like it's a lot of information.
As a brief review, like, if you put those 3 different positions of 1, 4, 5 all in the same key, there'd be that one, and then that one, and then could you review the one that starts here?
This one? Okay. Yeah, so this would be your 1. There's a couple different ways you get to your 4 here, but it's probably easiest to use that G type shape on the 11 and 12 fret. And back here, and then for this one, I wrote just go straight across. So you'd have 9th fret and 11th fret, and then 11th fret and 12th fret, that would be your 4, and then straight across on the 9th fret, that would be your 5. And again, I mean, like, it might be, like, down here is practical too. I mean, like, if you're doing a solo, like, especially, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it gets hard to count up here. When you start getting past the 12th fret, you're like, counting. But shapes are easy, right? We can all remember shapes. So, like, doing that type of stuff, even though you may not play down here, you may not really ever get the need to, like, really want to play, especially on the low strings out here. Playing on the high strings is really fun. And, like, it sounds cool, too. And so if you can get it down from the top, like, so that's just, again, all pentatonic stuff and like a couple double stuff. It's nothing different than I would do. It's all the same stuff. Like, none of that was like different. It was all the same pentatonic shape, right? It's all the same. So that's like the benefit of the mandolin being so symmetrical is simply that anything you learn, as long as you do it in a close position, you can move it to another position and it'll sound great. And if you move it to the octave, you can start linking those positions. A lot of this is going to boil down to, like, you know, pre-work before you go to the jam. You can't just walk into a jam, not know the song, and be like, I'm going to figure it out. Doesn't work that way. But you do a little bit of pre-work, right? So the prep work in order, right? This is the way that I would go about it if you wanted to learn it, right? You start off very basics. I'm a huge fan of rhythm. Rhythm gets you in the door, rhythm gets you in the jam, and you don't have to worry about soloing, just worry about the rhythm, right? A strong rhythm player is better than a decent lead player any day of the week. So, like, be a strong rhythm player. Right? So start off with those double stops, just the chords on the very end, right? Just using those. But while you're doing that, be thinking, what am I playing? Am I playing the 1 and the 3, the 3 and the 5, the 1 and the 5? What am I playing? And just use your vision. Just use those as anchors. Like, okay, this is what I would call like a root position, right? Because my first finger is in the root on the lowest string. And this would be what I would call a third position, because this is my root. My third is in the lowest string. Right? It's just the easiest for me to remember. And this would be the fifth position. Again, my root on the E, right? So you have the 1, 3, 5, right? And now I can say, okay, well, if I can find my 1 anywhere else, I know where my 3 and 5 are, right? So if I'm down here again, I have my scale here, right? I know that this is what it is. If I come down here, now I know that that's the third, right? Now you may be like, oh, well, going way up high is too much. That's fine, cool, because I know that if I go here on my E, and I have my C sharp here, right, this shape is the shape that I'm looking for. This is where my finger is on the fifth note, right? On the 7th. So you can start using that information to start branching out, right? So start off root position or rhythm positions, I suppose, like the G and the D. Learn the double stops for your favorite 1, 4, 5s. I would start off with G, A, and D. Seems to be the most common. Throw in the B flat, and the C at some point as well. Those also get pretty common. Learn those double stops, right? Next step. right? Add 2 notes, right? Actually, no, before you do that, next step is solo with the 1-3, 1-3 and 5, right? Solo break comes around to you. If you're in a friendly jam, and I stress a friendly jam, play the 1-3-5. Don't pass, right? It's tempting to pass because you're like, ah, crap, I'm not good enough. This other guy's so much better than I am. Like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to derail the jam. Well, don't. If you've done your work with the chords, you have good time. If you have good time and you're able to stay in time, you can play those 1-3-5 notes. It may not be the best solo you've ever taken, so again, friendly jam, right? But start off with that, right? Once you know where your 3 is, you can start using that 3rd to start making some interesting things happen, right? We've all heard the, right? That's just taking a 3rd and sliding from the flat 3rd to the major 3rd, right? It's a really easy soloing trick that you can use, and that makes it super easy. So we're gonna just check that out real quick. I'll show you just the power of the flat 3rd. This is all the first step, right? 1, right? And so you can hang on them, you can sit on them, you can do whatever you want as long as you resolve to the 3rd at some point. Right? So that's a handy trick. And again, simple stuff. You start off with the solo of the 1-3 and 5. All you're playing is 1-3-5, and then you add in a flat 3rd note every now and then. Now you're sounding like you got something going on. The reason why the flat 3rd works, by the way, is the same reason that if I told you, like, hey, I went to the grocery store yesterday, I bought a gallon of milk, and I went home and I had some cereal. That's a really, really boring story. Right? Nobody cares about that story. Everyone's like, okay, well, you just wasted 5 seconds of my life. Right? But if I told you the same story, if I went to the grocery store, I bought a gallon of milk, and on the way out, like a jet fighter crashed into the street right in front of me, and I was just sitting there. And then I went home and I had some milk, or I had some cereal. You'd ask me questions about that jet fighter, for sure. Like, every single time, right? Because it's weird, it's different. It's the thing that doesn't normally happen. The thing that doesn't normally happen is the thing that people will pay attention to, and that's the thing people will remember. So if you only play the 1-3 and 5, it's going to be a boring solo. It's a good start, but it's going to be a boring, right? So you need to throw in the note that people aren't expecting. Even though everyone expects the flat 3rd, it's still a note that's dissonant, right? So it's still good. The next one that you can add is the flat 7. We're not going to really touch on that too, but that's the dominant chord or dominant. That's similar idea to the flat 3rd. It gives you that same feeling. Right? All right. From there, the next step is study the pentatonic scale. Right? That's adding 2 notes. Right? So you've gone through your arpeggio studies. Right, and then sorry. Right, so then you do those practices. Then you add 2 more notes, right? You add the 2 and the 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 6. So just from adding those 2 notes, you start adding more depth to your solo, more dimension to it. These are still on notes. These are still good notes. These are still, I had bought some milk and went home and had some cereal type notes. Right? They're not super entertaining, but they're good notes. Try it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. that's just hitting an iceberg. Most of the solos that you hear are somehow based in the pentatonic scale. Like that's generally speaking, like not all of them, probably like 70% of them, I would say. In the bluegrass category, I would stress as well. There are a lot of them just are based in that scale. So knowing the pentatonic scale, this is where the four-finger close position does come into handy, right? Because we went over just how to do it here, right? So we do finger on the root on the first finger. But that's kind of limiting, right? Because that means you're always pointing down the neck. You're always going down the neck. What if you want to go across the neck? Or what if you want to go back up the neck, right? That's where the four-finger close position really comes in handy, because you're starting, instead of in this position, you see you have three fingers coming up the neck. You want to move up the neck. It's really hard to move back down the neck, aside from the fact that in this position might be more acceptable. It's still hard to get back down this position because you don't have any fingers over here, so you have to move your hands, right? So the four-finger close position technique is the same idea. This is the alternating the step 2 of this from the pentatonic. So you've gotten the basic pentatonic down. You've done your practices. You can do your two octave. Better than I can do. Alright, so you go through those and you practice those, just the A major, the G major pentatonics, things like that. You get those under your fingers. You should have an easy time because you already know where the 1, 3, and 5 is. You're just adding the notes that are in between those. So now, from there, I just lost my train of thought for a second. Yeah, thank you. Alright, so basically now what we're going to do is we're going to start using the middle finger. Right? So instead of using the first finger, you're going to start using the middle finger. With the A, the only way you can do that is starting really on the 7th fret here. So we're on the 7th fret of the D string. So it's going to be the same basic progression, right? So we have 1, and then whole step away, that's your 2 on the 9th fret. Then your pinky goes on the 11th fret, right? That's your 3rd. Right? Then you're going to go to your 5. Sorry. There it is. Your 5, your E, F sharp, and then A. Okay? So that's another shape that you can use to kind of just move yourself around. So you have the 7th fret, 9th fret, 11th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, 5th fret. Alright? There's 2 other positions. I feel like I'm getting a lot of glazed looks, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But that's the next step of the pentatonic scale. If you can learn how to start that on any of your fingers on the root, that's going to be, again, another help into being able to play in any key. Because you'll find yourself like, hey, I'm doing the double stop up here. I'm feeling so confident in these things, right? Now I'm here. Oh crap, now it's time to solo, but I'm way out of position. And I don't know how to get to my, like, what do I do from here? Being able to use those 4 fingers and like being able to know where your root is makes it super helpful to not get lost. So there's that. Basically, that's the next step from there is from an ear training standpoint. And this is again relative pitch. This is where you don't have perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is a hard thing, and very few people end up actually having perfect pitch. But relative pitch is something that you can train yourself on pretty easy. Relative pitch is just if I play you a note and I play you another note, you can tell me how far apart those 2 notes are. Alright? It's not the easiest thing in the world at first, but like you do it, you learn it, you kind of move on. It is like just an important part of practicing, just like, you know, practicing your right hand and practicing the metronome and practicing scales. It's not the sexiest of topics, it really isn't, but it's a really important topic. It's the one that arguably, like out of all this other stuff, knowing, having good relative pitch is going to make you a better musician than most of the stuff that we're talking about today. Because if you have a relative pitch, you can probably figure out the rest of the stuff without having to rely on shapes. So studying the ear training is good, but at the very basics, the very, very minimum, we don't have to know, okay, if I played you the root of something, you maybe can't tell me what the 5th sounds like. Not a problem. Can you tell me if it's going up or down or staying the same? That's your next step. Is the pitch going higher in the melody? Is the pitch going lower in the melody? Is the pitch staying consistent? Right? Look for melodic ideas. Is there a riff in the melody that's doing something interesting? Like, you know, like that's your melody. Like, cool, that's a cool melody. It's kind of going up and down. Right, so you're soloing. And so you can use the idea of like maybe the first two notes. Maybe if you know that, if all you picked up in like someone else's solo is like the first two notes of the melody. That's awesome. Play those two notes and then play any other notes you want after that are in that pentatonic scale. It's gonna sound okay, right? You're not gonna sound bad, right? And if it does sound bad, what do? Smile, move it down, or up, a half step. Super easy. Always smile. That's the best advice I ever got in my life. Is when you're on stage and you make a mistake, smile. Like just because nobody else knows you made that mistake except you. And that's doubly true for the jams. I don't know what we have at time. Anybody know?
115.
115?
145.
Still have a half hour.
Yeah, runs to 2:15.
Perfect. All right, cool.
Yeah, these are long workshops.
Yeah, they are. I don't know if I can. I packed a lot in, so I don't know. You guys got any questions?
How about if we just slow it down and do some practical with you?
Yeah, okay. Let's do that. We can start off with. We can go over the 1, 4, 5 real quick, and then from there just move
Yeah,
on.
so leave going from 1 to 4 when you're, when you're up here.
Okay. Quick question, poll the crowd. All right. So, do you want to focus more on the double stop chords or more on like pentatonic type riffs? Double stop chords. Pentatonic type riffs. All right, cool. Pentatonic type riffs it is. All right. So, so the first thing is like obviously let's get the pentatonic scale really under our fingers, right? We're gonna focus again on A. The next thing we can do is in the key of G, just to kind of get some flavor and difference. We're starting off on the key A. So the notes are 1, 3, 5, 6, and 1, 3, 5, 6, 1, 3, 5, 6. Is it? So you got A, second fret on the G string, fourth fret on the G string. That's your B, your 2. Third fret using your third finger on the 6th fret. That's your third. Up to the second fret on the D string, that's your 5. Right. The 4th fret on the same string, the D string, that's your 6. We're going to do the closed position here, so we're going to pinky on the 7th fret on the D. This is also the same as the open A string, it's an A note. Use the closed positions, always better. First finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. Middle finger on the 4th fret of the A string, that's your C sharp, that's your 3rd. Again, remember that note. Pinky here on the 5th fret. Sorry, 7th fret. I'm failing at counting. The 7th fret has your D, your 5. Second finger on first finger, 2nd fret, that's your sharp, your 6. And then ring finger up here on the 5th fret, that is your A. That is a 2-octave major pentatonic riff or scale. So let's do that real slow, everyone together, okay? 1, 2, ready, go. Backwards. Alright, now we're going to do a quick practice where we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the 1, 3, and 5 in 2 octaves on the way down and the way back for the first time through. And then we're going to do the pentatonic just the same way we just did. The practices that we're going to end up doing is we're doing the 1, 3, and 5 on the way down, pentatonic on the way up, and then pentatonic on the way down, 1, 3, and 5 on the way up. All right, so we're going to vary them up. Right, this will help kind of break your cycle of like thinking about things in one way. Thank you, Phil. All right. So real quick, same thing. We're gonna do 1, 3, and 5, going straight across the neck. Okay. So 2nd fret, 6th fret, same thing. 2nd fret on the D, 7th fret on the D, 4th fret on the A, 7th fret on the A, and then the 5th fret on the E. And then backwards will be 5th fret, 7th fret on the A with your pinky, 4th fret with your middle finger, 7th fret with your pinky on the D, 2nd fret on the D, 3rd fret on the 6th fret with your third finger on the G, and then back to the same. Okay? So let's do that, do it all together real slow again, just like before. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 7, 5. Backwards. 5, 7, 4, 7, 2, 6. Alright, let's do that one more time. Alright? So I'm shouting out just the frets. There's only two notes per string, so I'm not gonna shout out the string because that's hard to do. But alright, ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 6, 7, 4, 7, 5. And then 5, 7, 4, 6, 2. Alright? Hopefully everyone got it for the most part? Okay. Alright. Let's move from there. Alright. So now, pentatonic on the way down, arpeggio on the way up. Right? So 5 tones on the way down, 3 tones only on the way back up. Right? So we'll go to that slow again. So we'll start off with the A major pentatonic. So 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 7, 2, 4, 7, 2, 5. Right now, that's arpeggios. Okay, try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Arpeggios. Alright, so similar exercise. Now we're going to do the reverse of it, starting the 1, 3, 5, and do a pentatonic on the way back. Right? Same idea. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Pentatonic. Little tricky, right? So that's the point. So the idea here is that you're not always going to be doing the same thing or thinking the same thing when you're playing. So there are certain songs, certain progressions, certain melodies that you're going to want to play that 1, 3, and 5 note more frequently than you're going to want to play the 2 and the 6, right? And so you're going to want to be able to think in both mechanisms. Right? So using this type of practice helps kind of like separate that idea out. Again, doing it to a metronome, super good idea. Do everything to a metronome if you can. Not everything, but a good amount. Alright, so those are 2 really good practices. Another good one, this kind of goes into the major scale. Does everybody know the major scale, like A major scale? Right? That is the most symmetrical of the things, right? It's exactly the same across the neck. So the 2 strings mirror each other exactly. If anybody doesn't know the major scale, raise your hand real quick. Fantastic. Okay. So skipping thirds. You guys ever heard of that before? All right. This is where you play one note, you skip the next note, and you go to the note afterwards and play that note. And you fall back to the note that you skipped, and then you skip 2 notes, and then you fall back to the note that you skipped, and you repeat that process, So that's just it's a basic exercise. You can do it in any key you want. But this is a really, really good practice for both your right and left hands. And again, this kind of helps also going back to the ear training. I'm all about like multiple practices and one thing. So this goes to ear training a little bit because you're skipping the notes over. This goes into just your finger dexterity and your knowledge of the scale, right? So let's just go through that real quick. We can see, you'll see some of these things. You'll see people playing riffs along those lines, maybe a little bit more syncopated and things along those lines. But anyway, so this is a good practice to get better at the scales in general, just to kind of know where they are. And it's just a good speed exercise in my opinion too. So we'll just kind of run through that. It falls in the same thing. So that's going to start off with 2, 6, 4, 7, 6, and then skip to the next string. 2, back to the G string, 7, back to the D string, 4, 2, 6, 4, 7, 4, up the string, 2, back, 7, 4th fret on the A, 2, 5, 4, 7, 5, 2 the next string, 7 back, 4 the next string, 2, 5, 4, 7, 5. Then you could keep going. That just gets harder. So that's a good basic exercise. We'll try that one more time real quick, and then we'll see which one exercise. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 6, 4, 7, 6, 2, 7, 4, 2, 6, 4, 7, 6, 2, 7, 4, 2, 5. It's too hard to keep saying. Right? And then you obviously do it backwards.
What did you call that?
Skipping thirds. Yeah, you just go up a third and then fall back, and then up a third and fall back, and up a third. So it's always up a third. The cool thing is about this exercise too is it really helps highlight where that third is, right? So remember. The third is your friend. Know where the third is, know where the flat third is. Your best friend in the solo. If you ever get lost in the solo, just sit on the flat third for a minute. It'll sound okay. So yeah, so that's a good practice. Obviously you're not going to do that in a jam itself, but the idea, what I like about this type of practice is if you start like syncopating it or something like that, you can come up with your own riffs, and it's an easy way to like get kind of like some ideas. Like, so you're like. Some fun stuff just by playing with time, right? And like remember, time and tone are all we have as musicians, so you have to pay attention to time just as much as you pay attention to what you're doing here, right? Because if you don't have time, then your pitch doesn't matter. It still sucks, right? All right, so that's where that stuff can come in handy. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. All right.
Use waterfall or Fiji.
What's up?
Waterfall or Fiji.
Oh, like actually. So there's a really great Tim O'Brien exercise that again I believe is available on jazzmando.com. I do have a link to it on my website, and I think it goes back to that. I'm not positive. But either way, that's a great one. So that's another really good way to practice, and again, get better at being able to solo in any of those keys. So the waterfall arpeggio, you can do it in a couple different ways. I like doing this if I'm like learning a song. I'll just strip out the melody of the song completely and just look at the chord shapes, or the chord names, I'm sorry. And I'll just do exactly that, where I'll write out my fretboard diagrams of those chords. I'll have them sitting in front of my face, and I can see them. And then I'll be like, okay, it's G for 2 measures, and then C for 2 measures, and then G for 2 measures, and D for 2 measures. And you just basically play the arpeggio of G for those 2 measures, and then move into C, and then move into G, and then move back into D. It's a really easy way to kind of get to the point of like, okay, I'm playing a solo. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with start off with the arpeggio solos, right? Like the simple arpeggio solos. If you strip a song, any song you want, down to just those 1, 3, 5 notes, and you play them in order, it'll sound pleasing because it sounds kind of like classical, and like your ear wants to go to where it's going. But then you can take syncopation and take that same idea of like these cascading arpeggios and make them a little bit more interesting, so they start sounding like a solo because now you're going through the parts. So it's a very good point. I should have brought that up earlier. Let's go through that real quick in A, just because that's what we're doing. So we'll just do A, right into D, and then right into E, right? So we didn't go over actually the D and the E arpeggios, so maybe we need to do that first. So one step back. Hey, let's do the D arpeggio. Okay? We're going to do it in a closed position. These can be done in open positions. It's nothing wrong with doing it in open positions whatsoever, but you just get more bang for your buck when you do it in closed positions. So that's why I like doing it in the workshops. So we're going to start off D, right? So we've already done our A, so we don't need to do that again. But D, we're going to use your pinky on the 7th fret, on the G string, then 4th fret on the D string with your middle finger, pinky on the 7th fret, sorry, and then G, middle finger, the ring finger, sorry, on the 5th fret of the A, and then we can go for 2 octaves. We're going to go 2nd fret on the E string, slide that first finger up to the 5th fret. That'll be your A note. And then your pinky goes here on the 10th fret, that'll be your D. That's your octave. So we have a shift in this one. The key with shifting is you don't want to hear the shift. So try and keep the time and don't get this. That's not a shift, that's a slide, right? So you want to get that clean note, right? Nothing wrong with slides, but clean notes is where it's at. Alright? So let's try that real quick. Ready? So starting off the 7th fret with your pinky. If you really want to, you can do the open frets too. We'll go over that real quick just in case anybody wants to use the open ones. That's open D, middle finger on the 4th fret, open A, ring finger on the 5th fret, first finger still on the 2nd fret, sliding up the 5th fret, and then your pinky still. And so it just changes the right, which is super handy in the solo. I use that all the time. You'll see that. Alright, so let's just start off with just those two, right? We're just going to go from 1 to 4, from A to D. Right, that's it. We're not going to worry about the 5 yet. The 5 will be easy. The reason why the 5 is going to be easy is it's the same thing that we did with the A. You just shift it down the string, and it's exactly the same stuff. But there's a shift in it, so we'll do it. Alright, so arpeggio of A down and up, and then arpeggio of D down and up. I feel like that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. first step, right? Now when you have that stuff down, it starts opening up a lot of different positions, a lot of different ideas and things like that. And you notice when we slide down here, by the way, with the pinky and the D, again, just going back to how these pentatonic scales relate to each other, when your pinky is on the root, right, which is what it is here, that's exactly the same as the same pentatonic scale we did for A, right? And so you use that at the end. Now you're looking at the D major pentatonic, right? So it would be in the D major, it's 10, 7, 5, 9, 7, 5, right? So just a quick example, but this is why it's powerful to know where your finger position is. Because then if you know your finger, if you land, like for example, doing that pentatonic scale, you're like, okay, like you did. If you're here, but you want to do a riff, and now you're back into your just regular old pentatonic scale. The first one, easy. So knowing those where your root is can really help figure that part out. All right, anybody got any questions on the 1 to the 4? All right, let's try 1 to 5. All right, so E. So E is going to start off the exact same way as A, it just shifts up a string, right? So instead of starting on the G string, you're now starting on the D string, 2nd fret. So it's going to be 2nd fret, 6th fret, 2nd fret, 7th fret. You do have an option here with over there. 4th fret here with your ring finger. Now you're going to slide here and change fingers to your first finger. So you get to the B on the 7th fret, and then your pinky on the E, the high 12th fret. All right, and again, just